On episode 70 of Chit Chat, while we mourned not having Gen Con this year, we still celebrated, of course. Many of us played some of the latest and greatest virtually, while some of us decided to throw our own con in honor of the event. But games were played for sure.
Welcome back to Chit Chat.
Yes, indeed. This is episode 70. It's hard to believe we've gotten to 70, but we have. It's harder to believe that we went this year without a Gen Con, sort of.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't have a Gen Con proper, but we did celebrate Gen Con still in a variety of different ways. We're going to talk all about that because we played tons of different games over the last week in many different ways. But before we get to any of that discussion, we do have a winner from the last episode.
Yep. Well, we didn't have a Gen Con, but we did have a new pandemic. All right.
Well, are you talking about 7-0?
Yes. All right. So the winner was Carol Johnson. You have won Tournament at Avalon, or Avalon of Avalon. Or
Tournament at Avalon.
Yeah, there you go. All you have to do is email us at manvsmeeple@gmail.com. This week, we're going to give away a copy of Court of the Dead, Dark Harvest, a brand new game from Skybound, based in the Court of the Dead universe. If you don't know what that is, it's a sideshow product that's eerie and macabre and pretty cool looking too.
Pretty creepy. The game itself is kind of like this interesting bidding game where you're getting into each other's heads. Pretty light little game, almost like a filler plus sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk about Gen Con, Gen Can, Gen Can't, whatever, but also all the games we did. And did anyone, and maybe some announcements that were made? I don't know. Jeremy, you're probably more up on that than anyone.
Yep.
But who wants to start talking about how you spent your Gen Con week? I know, Jeremy, you started off kind of like mourning the loss of Gen Con proper. You know, Wednesday came around, and that's your Wednesday. The Wednesday of Gen Con is kind of your best day of the year, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm still kind of depressed. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's my favorite time of the year. My birthday falls right on that time frame. I think last year my birthday was that first day of Gen Con, that Thursday. We got to spend that with Bezier, and I think David and I played a game there, and they brought cupcakes. It was just a really fun event.
Suburbia, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Gen Con. It's local, which helps because we're traveling back and forth from our homes, but I just love the atmosphere of that convention. It's big, but it's not so big that it's unmanageable. It's not like Essen. I like Essen as well, but Essen's just huge. It's just a fun time, and I totally miss it. I think everyone else does. I think that's pretty consensual across the board. The question is, though, today is like, what did it have the same impact?
No.
Game announcement? Well, no, it didn't. And did the online thing matter in the end? And I don't want to disparage Gen Con because I believe they put their best foot forward. I think Essen put their best foot forward. But it's a different experience. And I don't know what the numbers say. I know what the numbers say for Comic-Con because they announced them and they were pretty dismal, the number of viewers. And when I was watching some of the channels, I was seeing views in the range of, on the main stage, a couple hundred people. But in the smaller ones, you struggle to get less or more than a dozen people watching it, sometimes far less than that, one or two people watching some of these things. And I don't know the impact that it's going to have there. More importantly, though, Gen Con is, just like Essen, one of those times where you get people to sit down and play your new games. And now all the games are being announced electronically through a wide range of different marketing tactics. And I don't know if it's getting the same reach as what a Gen Con would typically do, because there's so much buzz around being there, and it's not the same when you do it digitally.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I mean, there is a difference. Even when we sat and watched the Fantasy Flight live event, the in-flight report, the difference between watching it at home and then being there where you're surrounded by people who are all there for that same purpose and everybody's really into it, even when they announce something that's maybe really cool, it just doesn't have the same impact to me when I'm sitting at home. Yeah. If I had been there and the crowd goes wild and you're just swept up with the emotion of the event, it's an entirely different experience. And I mean, to be fair, I don't think there's any way a publisher can replicate the excitement of seeing a product for the first time by just showing it on your computer monitor. I mean, it's never going to be the same.
Well, I mean, we
Correct.
see it on a monitor when we are there. It's not like we're looking at anything on a table.
Well,
But I would say for me that the Wednesday thing, which is wonderful and a very fun event that we like, but if they had at least maybe they had a lot of problems with the live, and I think that impacted everyone's enthusiasm. If we were watching the chat on Twitch, and there was a lot happening there, and I think that it could have been exciting, a little more exciting, not as exciting as being there in person, but a little bit more exciting if things had worked out as planned. And the thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting is they went ahead and did the recorded version and they just uploaded it as a video. Did anyone see I don't think they did upload it as a premiere, which if they had done that, then they could have had a live chat just like we would have done if it had been live, because, I mean, let's be honest, that could have been pre-recorded.
Well, I think that's
Sure.
one of those, live and learn type things. I don't
Sure.
think anyone was really prepared for coronavirus, number one, or to be at home during this time. So I think everyone's kind of like shuffling to, number one, figure out what they can announce and the best way to do it. And if anyone could pull off an event like that, you would think that FFG would be that company that could do a live stream. And I'm sure it was just some kind of technical hiccup that had happened. And it was unfortunate because that's their big marketing push of the year. Gen Con's the one, and really the in-flight report's the one publisher event that gets the most amount of attention because they do it very much like a video game style one, where it's, a lot of pomp that goes on there. A lot of people show up for it. And to be honest, FFG is still one of the bigger companies in the industry, and everyone centers around them because they have some really cool IPs. They have some really cool products. They put up a lot of attention into their art and their graphics and their gameplay. So if anyone could have done it right, it would have been them. And just unfortunately, that night when we live streamed it, it just hiccuped. And we
I actually watched a little of that after the fact, and I was kind of scrubbing through, and I hadn't watched it when it was happening because I was away. So I watched some of our coverage, and as I was scrubbing through, I saw that their screen was pretty much sort of a dead screen that said FFG Live the whole time. So I didn't realize how much of a kind of bust that was or wasn't. I am a little surprised because, like you said, Jeremy, FFG is probably the closest thing we have in the board game industry to one of the big video game companies in the video game industry, and that in-flight report that they do is the closest thing to those E3 events the press conferences that Sony and Microsoft put on. I think I would have, and again, I'm not criticizing because there's a lot going on and it is hard to do this, but if they ever have to do something like that again in the future, I think a lot of pre-recorded stuff where you're just pushing play and hoping that the live stream happens and not having to pivot in the middle of a live stream, so that they're just presenting it kind of like some of the video game companies have done the same thing in the last few months. And some of them have gone the FFG route where they're all in their homes and it feels like a Zoom meeting and they're talking. And then some of them have, recorded, pre-recorded things where they're introducing things very, sort of professionally with professional graphics going on. I really think that could be pulled off, but again, I think that ends with FFG because not every company is going to be able to do that.
Well, we did see, I don't know how much coverage you guys watched during the convention, but I did watch Pandasaurus as well, and that was hosted by Theo and by Mandy. Theo would do the segues in between, and then Mandy would do like the short introductions to the games, talking to either the owners of Pandasaurus or the designers of the game, and it was all pre-recorded and put together and then put up on YouTube. And it was really, really professional looking. It was fast. It was over. It was very much, again, like a video game thing where you got the information you needed to get, and then you're out onto the next thing. And I think that's what people like me, that's how I consume media. I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit around and watch something all day. I want to know what's new. I want to know where I can get it. I want to know what it looks like, and I want to move on to the next thing. And unfortunately, Gary mentioned in here, hello, Gary, that board games are very much a social thing. They're not like video games where you can sit in your cave and play a game by yourself and be perfectly content. I need people, and it's very hard for me to do Tabletopia and TTS, and I liked it. I like to prototype and play games on there to see what it's like. But I am not the kind of person that wants to play a campaign or a long Euro game there. I want to sit with people and play it. So we have this built-in barrier with board games that we are going to struggle with for a long time to get past unless we can find out a way that makes these games far more accessible, more like an app and less like a TTS game to get through.
Yeah.
Well, I think another talking about these like Pandas versus FFG, I think even if all of them had gone off without a hitch and been perfect, it's still different because when that in-flight ends, a lot of times Asmodee will host a big get-together where you can actually go, and some of the games that they literally just announced are right there on the table for you to demo and play, or you can come to their booth the next day. So when you see something like the Twilight Imperium announcement where they're announcing a new expansion, you can go see it, like, you know. Now it's like, okay, well, now I have to wait. Maybe it's going to get here in 3 to 4 months or whatever. So that excitement of like, now I know what I want to see the next day on the Gen Con floor just isn't there, because it's like, okay, so they announced new Marvel heroes for Marvel Champions, which is exciting, but we're still a year away from those heroes coming out. I don't get to go back to Asmodee's headquarters and demo those heroes tonight. So,
and more than likely too, Ryan, the way the FFG works and the way that a lot of these publishers work, if we had gone to Gen Con this year, I guarantee you Hulk would have been there and Skull would have been there as well.
For sure.
People would have been walking away with those, and it's just not the same. Like, that excitement is gone, and it's just simply watching and waiting for the next thing to come out to retail.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing about Gen Con. A lot of people go to Gen Con to play games, and you can replicate that online. You can do panels, you can do TTS games, but you're never going to have that feeling of going in and walking out with something brand new. Yep. Maybe you'll get it in 2 months when it ships, but that's not the same feeling at all for me.
So I think this is pretty universal across the board. I think most people feel this way. They may not want to say it because they want to support these. And I think we obviously want to support online stuff as well, doing live streams, but it's not the same. Let's talk about what was announced there, because there is some excitement for games that are coming out. Kira, did you watch any of this stuff? Is there anything that you saw that really, really excited you outside of Marvel? Because we could probably talk about Marvel the rest of the night.
Not really. I mean, there's some
thank you, Kira.
There was some new Arkham stuff, which is cool. I just finished a really amazing campaign, and honestly, it was the best one in a while. I'd been kind of burnt on Arkham because of just how brutal it can be and auto fails and all that stuff, which is just one of those things that turns me off about Arkham and why I turn to Marvel more or less. But I do get to play Arkham with some friends that I used to work with, so it's a nice way for us to keep in touch. And so that campaign is, I kept playing, even though sometimes it was like a little tough to get through it. But then we finally got one. This last one, you had this dual thing going on. It was really exciting. So when I saw that there was more new stuff coming for Arkham, and I actually did perk up a little bit because, I had a really good experience with this last campaign. But I don't know, there were a few things. I was more disappointed that I still don't have my X-Men games or Marvel Champion stuff that I want. And I know you said no more Marvel, but that's what I was hoping for.
Oh, I hear it. Yeah, we could briefly talk about Marvel stuff. There's some cool announcement there. One was the Wasp and the Ant-Man thing. The team-ups that can now happen with the game moving forward. Cards are characters that have synergy within each other. Like, you play a card, and if another player is playing that same type of person, they do something fun. Ant-Man has a foldable card, which is kind of cool. And then the Guardians thing, which they announced, is really, really neat. You have a market now. You can buy cards in between campaign. You have the Milano, which people who know what Guardians is, it's a ship that can be upgraded and move around. So there's a lot of really cool things on the docket. Of course, all the other characters and stuff they have as well. So that was cool. Descent was a really big announcement. I've known about the new Descent for a while now. What's that?
Kind of a half announcement.
What do you mean?
They haven't given anything.
That was maybe my favorite part of the entire thing, though. It was cute, and it would have been fun if they'd been able to do that live. But it was very cute.
Yeah.
So a couple things about that. It did leak about a month ago that was going to happen. I'm 99.9% sure this is going to be an app-based game.
Better be.
With campaign structures on it. So hopefully we'll have some coverage of that soon. But I'm super excited for that. The X-Men game they had was just I'm not a big fan of elder signs, and that's basically what it looked like. It looked like a
X-Men Yahtzee?
Yeah.
yes, for lack of a better term, yes.
Well, even outside of FFG, it really does feel like a lot of publishers beset by coronavirus, not knowing if there was going to be conventions at all in any form, just didn't load up their schedule this year.
Yeah.
So a lot of people coming into Gen Con, a lot of the announcements were things maybe that we'd already seen, or they just gave some new information, or maybe talked about a Kickstarter that was coming. But it feels like in general, this year has suffered for board games. And I don't think publishers really had a lot to announce, because a lot of them aren't sure what their 2021 is even going to look like because of the instability in the markets right now. So it's kind of hard to look forward when they're really, kind of, some publishers are really struggling right now. And without the sales that normally come with Gen Con, I do wonder what the next year is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious, but yes, I have no idea what it's going to look like.
I mean, obviously the
anything-
market's not that bad. Kickstarter's still doing
No.
incredible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it
Kickstarter's
too
still doing
is
great.
they might have been more apt to announce things if stuff had arrived in time. The factories and everything are super behind because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so on top of it, things may have just not gotten here. So they're going to wait and announce them at Essen or in between somewhere instead. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
claim to know what the economics are behind all of this and how well people are and are not doing, but I suspect that people are still buying games.
Sure.
A good game is always going to sell, no matter what it is. And if it comes out during an economic crisis, which pretty much the entire world is in right now, or during a pandemic, I think these solid games are going to do well. It's the ones that are on the fringe that you may have wanted to buy, and then you're like, I've got this game instead. Those are the games that people need to worry about if you're a publisher. I think this is the time where you really look hard at your catalog and you say, do we really need to make this? Does it have an audience? Are we going to be able to sell it? If not, let's find something else.
Yeah, get rid of the bloat,
But-
right? It's the time to get rid
Yes.
of the bloat.
And
I would
Abba-
say, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, there was a comment from Abigail, who I think brings up a good point. She says, do you think maybe publishers are waiting for some of their bigger announcements until they know that production is going to be stable? And I think that might be true. Like, maybe some people are hesitant to announce something when they don't even know exactly when they're going to be able to provide it. So maybe when factory production becomes a little more caught up, we'll start to see some of the announcements that people were waiting on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a general tendency that I've noticed, at least with some publishers, even before the pandemic, more and more people were trying to wait until they had games nearly ready, and they would then announce them, and then they'd have them already in production or maybe produced, and then they would be coming out in short order. I mean, even some Kickstarter companies are taking that approach where they really get things ready to go so they can hit the ground running and not make people wait too much. One thing I wanted to say about Gen Con, how long it will go and what we could look for in the future. I'm hoping that at least they're learning from this experience and assuming that if and when they have to do this same sort of thing again in the future, they'll give it a lot more thought. I mean, obviously, everyone had to hustle this year and try to figure out, okay, what are we going to do?
In a matter of months, when they normally have an entire
matter
year to
of
plan.
months.
Right.
Yeah.
And even next year, it would probably not go on without some hiccups. But I think some of the things we discussed here tonight, I think they could have some really solid backup plans. And I think event companies like this are going to have those things in mind going forward to make the most of it. And unfortunately, they rely on all these publishers. And like you mentioned, Jeremy, Comic-Con relies on all these entertainment companies. So it's not as easy as going, oh, here's how we'll do it, because a lot of those companies are struggling too. Like Comic-Con, I'd say a big problem or a big hurdle it had was the movie companies just don't have anything in production right now. So
Right.
like there's nothing to talk about. So even when they do it online, they could have had that same sort of excitement if there were 200 movies announced at
Right.
Comic-Con, but there just aren't because everything's getting pushed off so far.
Well, it's that same thing. Who knows when a movie will come out? Like, it might be 3 years away, even if they have the idea of it now. And I think board games are the same way. Not to mention the number of designs that normally get signed at Gen Con. Like, a lot of publishers go to these cons just to sign games that I know some bigger, big name designers have been able to secure tabletop simulator audiences and still get their games signed and things like that. But the smaller guy that maybe is coming to Gen Con with his first design that could be maybe one of the best games of the year, that game might not ever make it now because they didn't get a chance to come to these conventions. So I think that's another thing that we have to consider, that publishers are not necessarily playing with a full hand because they don't have access to all these great designers anymore either.
I think one of the things we may have mentioned last time too, and I'll reiterate, I think one of the keys to these online conventions, if they can find a way to do it, is to deliver content either pre-recorded or live, but also have those games available for purchase.
Yeah,
that is such an important aspect. The announcements for future stuff is cool, but as we live in this time where everything right now is online, people want these games right now. So this is already a problem in the industry. Like the window of announcements to releases is pretty close. We don't have like the movie industry and the video game industry where you have a set date. You know that this PlayStation game is going to be released on this date, and you have all this hype that's going to build up to it. This industry is just so backwards that dates are all over the place. They could ship a month from now or this week. If they can find a way that they can get these into people's hands on the day of the announcement on these online things, with whatever convention it is, I think that would be a huge boost to their sales and also just the pomp that's created around that product.
Yeah,
I would definitely buy something like that.
Could you imagine, Jeremy, like you mentioned, Red Skull might have been at Gen Con and people could have walked away with it. Could you imagine if they were able to have coordinated, and I know everybody that this is a lot to coordinate, but sort of dream scenario, if they could have coordinated where they did this announcement, they revealed something like they do at Gen Con and said, and tomorrow you can go to any one of these local game stores in your area and pick this up.
Yeah.
And not only is it a great and exciting, but what an injection in the arm for the local friendly game stores, right? Like, because even if they set up a process where they set up, we're going to have a drive-through scenario for Red Skull. You just drive up, you can call and order ahead, and they'll come out and give it to you at your window, and you're on your way and playing Red Skull. Like, that would have been something we'd all be talking about today, right now. Like, it would have been like the event of Gen Con last year if someone able to do that. Again, hindsight is 2020, so maybe someone can pull some of these sorts of things off in the future.
Well, they've got a year, right?
That,
you're right, and hopefully we don't have to next year.
Even if they could have arranged some sort of 1 or 2 day shipping option where they announce something brand new on Wednesday and say, if you buy it right now, you'll have it to play this weekend while Gen Con is still going on. Yeah. And I think that would have been huge if people could have bought a new Marvel hero and just click add to cart and it's here by Saturday. Like, that would have been huge too, because if you can buy games and have them that weekend, I think people would have paid. Like, even some of these big releases that may have come out at Gen Con, like Tekkenu, if Board and Dice could have offered overnight shipping, I think people would have gobbled that up. Now, of course, that's probably pretty expensive for the publisher, and there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of coordinating that we don't see behind the scenes. But if anybody could have pulled that off, that would have been huge.
Coordinating with Amazon for Prime delivery, though, would have been a way. I know that's not as beneficial for everybody, but that ability, like, I could order, you make the announcement on Wednesday during Gen Con, I can order it in Prime and have it by this weekend would have been amazing.
Yeah. Right.
I do think, mentioning Board and Dice, Ryan, I do think they did a pretty good job of at least timing Tekkenu, because they'd had pre-orders for Tekkenu, about a month ago open up? Yeah. And I believe that is just right now starting to be available, right? Is it not?
Yeah.
So that's pretty good timing. Is there anything else like that? Does anyone know of the games that are just kind of hitting right now?
Pendulum is one of them. I think that went into pre-order, and I think that's in the warehouse ready to ship as well.
Alma Mater?
Alma Mater.
Close.
Can't really see it. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Marvel Villainous up here somewhere?
Oh, Villainous, yeah.
That's one of those games that was going to be a Gen Con release, but it's available now in retail as well. Any other games, by the way, that you guys saw that were announced?
I didn't see anything announced that was like that we didn't know about anyway.
Right. That's the key. Is like we do get a lot of privileged information, obviously, and some of these games we've worked with them. So like we've already produced content for these games. We already knew they were coming out. But there's always titles that normally surprise us at Gen Con, like big deal announcements. And I think a lot of combining reasons, we just didn't see anything that really
Well,
blew our
I've got
It
two.
minds.
shook
I've got
everything.
two.
What
I've
are
got
they?
two.
Jeremy?
Right.
One of them is the new fantasy realms, the Cursed
Oh
Horde.
yeah. That's
And
cool.
I love fantasy. I know you guys love Fantasy Realms.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the best filler games, period. There's either a new expansion. I think it's an expansion, but I think it may be a standalone as well that can be added.
Probably.
And then the other one was Seven Wonders. And I know this
yeah.
is just a re-implementation. And actually, we have a little private thread with some of the people that we've been friends with for a long time. We talked about this, how ugly most of us, thought the cover was. And I was one of those people who thought, this new logo is just super flat and it's not super appealing. But the moment that I opened up the box, like the cards are so nice. They're foil. The art's expanded. You have iconography now, which replaces some of the stuff in there. They've done some balance changes. I'm just super excited. And I know that I have to rebuy it all of it again, which is really dumb, but I will. I mean, Seven Wonders is one of my favorite games. It's probably the best drafting game that's ever been made.
Doesn't say right
And
on the
it's just-
box the most awarded game.
Yeah, but it's just really cool that it's getting back out into the market. Just like the Queen stuff from Feld. Like, it's cool that all these older games, I know we talk about new stuff, but there's some really good gems out there. Ginkgopolis is another one of those games that was just announced to be re-implemented. Rococo was one as well. Like, I'm so happy to see these older games that aren't getting a lot of attention anymore, getting back into the limelight.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people you talk to, because there's a lot of new people in the hobby, and some of them are like, oh yeah, I've never played Seven Wonders. Like, it's so easy for the cult of the new just to become what the new gamers play, and they don't ever really go back and look at those things. And Seven Wonders, I mean, that's really, was there a significant drafting game at all before that? Wasn't that sort of the one that started it all with that mechanic?
If there was, it wasn't as big as that.
Sure.
No. I still think, and I hope that this comes out, they're re-releasing the base game and all the expansions. I was really hoping for a Seven Wonders big box that came with the storage solutions for all the different expansions and everything.
That would be nice.
So maybe it's not out of the question. I'm kind of holding off on buying any of the new rebranded stuff until maybe one of those might come out. Who knows? I don't know anything, but that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
So I
do we want?
I was
Do
going
we
to
want
say.
to
Oh, sorry, David.
You can go in a second. I was just going to suggest we pivot over to the fun things we did do to celebrate Gen Con. But go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say we've kind of beat up on the event a little bit because it didn't give us the same amount of excitement, which nothing's going to replicate the pageantry of being at the show. But I did want to say, like Jeremy mentioned panels, like I did see a lot of attendance on panels. I did see a lot of events sold out. So, and the Discord seemed very popular. I had to mute it because I have Discord for work, and so it just got to be too much for me to keep up with. But that was the other weird thing. I worked through Gen Con, which I would not normally do. So that was different. But yeah, so I want to make sure that we point out that I think Gen Con did an incredible job with it.
Absolutely.
I don't know that they could have done any better in the amount of time that they had. Like I said, I think the only thing better would be somehow, whether that's the pop-up Gen Cons or whatever, some sort of store that people could go to in each city and drive through, like we said, but or work with the retailers in some way. But I think they did a great job. So.
I mean, I think they did, and I think it's important to have these events because that way the Gen Con name still shines through. People are still seeing Gen Con merchandise. People were still able to order shirts and pins and memorabilia and all this stuff. And this is something like I ordered a Gen Con 2020 shirt just because I know in a few years it's going to be like, remember Gen Con 2020 when we all sat at home and like,
collector's item.
Right. It's just kind of like a fun little memorabilia. So I think it's important that they did this. And I think it's important to remember that what we get out of Gen Con is not what the average attendee gets out of Gen Con. We take meetings, we network, we have business dinners. The average person just goes to play games. And I think for them, they were able to sit at home and play tabletop simulator games with people that they'd never met before, games that they probably don't have a chance to play normally. So in that aspect, I have to agree with Kira that I think that was a big success. But I don't think that this is a substitute for Gen Con at all. Like, I don't think it can ever be classified as such.
No, and hopefully we get back to normal. I don't foresee anything happening until at least spring of next year, but
Yeah.
Yeah, me, same.
see.
It-
All right, so as David alluded to, let's move over to the games we've been playing and the things that we did during that Gen Con week, other than
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah, it was pretty depressing seeing all the memories from last year pop up and all the great Gen Con things. And we always have like a media mixer at set that we didn't have this year, and so it's just a lot of empty feelings. But everybody out there that's watching, we all miss you. We miss seeing the fans.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
It's an interesting point you brought up there, Ryan. I don't really pay attention too much to too many of my Facebook quote unquote memories, but every year around Gen Con, it is really fun to see those pictures pop back up, and I saw a lot of when I got my 5 Tribes expansion signed by Bruno. And a picture of me and my son Spencer, who was so little at the time, trying out Imperial Assault for the first time. I don't know how many years that was, but he was a tiny little kid. Now he's a junior in high school. So it was really fun to see sort of your life Gen Con to Gen Con over the last decade.
Yep.
So that was fun. But and like we said, we did have some fun. We all played some games. Jeremy, who all played some games online? Jeremy, didn't you participate, or didn't some of you participate in some games online?
I just participated in one. Here and I got to sit down with Luke, Lori, and Scott Caputo. Luke from Energy Empire and Scott Caputo from obviously Whistle Stop, Sorcerer City, and a couple others. We got to play Whistle Stop. Whistle Mountain, my bad, yeah. It has nothing to do with Whistle Stop. It's a completely different style of game, but it's very, very interesting. You are... Kier, do you want to talk about it? I think it's one of the games you're going to talk about.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've never played Whistle Stop, so I had no experience with this ahead of time.
What?
Nope.
Wow.
You guys do that to me all the time, There's a lot of stuff I haven't played. I haven't been doing this as long as you. So
remember, Kira was a publisher for years.
Yeah.
She didn't get to play games. She had to make them.
I played my own games.
Right.
So anyway, that's the other thing. I was really looking forward. This has been my second year on the other side of the booth, actually enjoying Gen Con, and I didn't get to do that. But anyhow, so Whistle Mountain, we got to play with Luke Lurie and Scott Caputo, the 2 designers, like Jeremy said. Really exciting. I had popped up a picture of the Tabletopia module that we were playing, which I cannot play games on these things anymore because I can't grab my pieces. But regardless of all the frustration with struggling with my pieces, I had such a good time playing it. It was so good. I don't know. It's not like a game I've played before, but what I really liked about it was the having to get up. You had to build up, and you had to be really strategic about getting your different resources and and you could do a lot of different things to move forward. We all had somewhat different strategies on how we were going about it's just a neat game. It was a really neat game.
Yeah, it's super variable because the way the board builds out every time is going to make the game different. So you have that, and then all of these tiles, the tiles that you see up on the screen, there's literally dozens of them. So every game is going to be really, really different. Your powers at the beginning are going to be very, very different. How you build is going to be very, very different. And it's just it's a very cool game. And it's one of those games, David, you're going to like because you know how Luke does all of his things on worker placements where people are going to be out of sync with each other. Some people are going to be placing, some people are going to be pulling back, and it does that too. So
sweet.
It's really cool.
I was going to ask you, Jeremy, because I know you played Whistle Stop and you've played probably other Scott Caputo games as well. Who does it feel like a balance between the two, or do you feel more Luke Laurie, or is it?
It's far more worker placement-y
cool.
than anything else. So
Luke's wheelhouse.
It's definitely Luke when it goes for that. But the tile stuff, Scott's done in a lot of his games. So tile's kind of like the master of tile placement. So it is definitely a mix of both of them. It's cool. I did not go into that game expecting a completely different game, and I'm glad that it separates itself from Whistle Stop, for sure. That's the only thing I played online during that week.
I played one game online as well. I played Secret Neighbor, coming soon from Arcane Wonders.
Oh, how was that?
It's a social deduction game set in the Hello Neighbor universe. And for those who don't know, that's a really popular PC game. So this is a social deduction game where a couple players at the table are kids and a couple players at the table are neighbors. And you're competing basically to unlock this secret door. And if the kids get the keys and vote to unlock the door, they win. And if the neighbors get the keys and vote, they win. And you do it through this interesting card play where you're trading cards with each other face down and lying to each other. And your standard social deduction fare. But I think it was a lot of fun. We played with 4. I think probably obviously the more players you get in that, or 5. Sorry, we played with 5. But the more players you get, the more it's going to be difficult. We kind of figured out who the people were pretty quick. But that's coming soon from Arcane Wonders, and it was kind of neat. It was the only game I played for Gen Con. I don't know what your experience was like, but Arcane Wonders built a tabletop simulator room that when you played, it almost looked like you were in a booth. The table was in the center. They had shelving units set up with all their games for sale shown there, and they had like a standees. It just looked like being in their booth playing. So that was something I could really appreciate. I don't think a lot of publishers did that, or if they did, I'd like to see what their tabletop simulator rooms looked like, because I think that's really cool, because at least for those moments, that hour, it kind of did feel like sitting in a booth. So I really did appreciate that from them. So yeah.
Cool.
Did you guys play any more games outside of being online? What did you play?
Yeah.
So I'll let one of you guys talk about Viscounts of the West Kingdom, because we just live streamed that.
Yeah.
So I'll let you guys talk about that. I have a review that will hopefully go up tonight for this game. It's called Super Skill Pinball 4K from WizKids. It is. Should I say what it is?
I don't know. What were you about to just say?
I was going to say it's fantastic, but I don't want to give all my review away. So I have a very love-hate relationship with roll and rides, because I feel like there's just way too many of them. Like, everyone who has a popular IP pulls from that IP and just makes a game. And there's really great. No, I'm just saying there's some really great ones, and there's just some really bad ones. And there's very few that are great. And this is one of those that I think is really, really cool. Like, I was pleasantly surprised by this game so much that I wanted to do a review of a roll and write. And typically I'd be doing some bigger Euro game behind me. But I just fell in love with it. So that review should be up tonight or tomorrow as soon as I can get it done. I'm pretty close to being done. And the other game, not a game, 2 games. One game is this, and I have to thank Jay Howe. So Jeremy Howard showed me this one. He did a live stream of it, and it is a $14.99 Amazon game. And it's from Think Fun. I think they're a smaller publisher that works with Ravensburger. And basically, it's like Sudoku, but for Minecraft puzzles. And you're basically making these little things on your board with pickaxes and breastplates and swords. And man, it is good. It is really, really good. I absolutely love this game. And then the final thing I'll say is, Kira, if you can throw up some pictures of my call.
Yep.
I spent part of Gen Con hoping that I would get new Gen Con titles onto my shelf. So as you can see here, I spent a lot of time going through my entire collection and all the games that are down here as well behind me.
They didn't see that because I had your picture up.
That's okay. All this stuff behind you is just full of games. And my wife told me a long time ago when I built this office out that if I had board games, this is where they had to fit. And this is the only place in the house where they could fit. And of course, it's not fit here at times and has fit. Now everything fits. 60-some games. I think it was like 62 games that I called. It just felt really good. And to be quite honest with you, I always struggle with that. I could not tell you a third of the games that are upstairs that I need to get new homes to, because I just don't remember them anymore. This is the games that mean something to me. They're the ones I will play. They're ones that have sentimental meaning to me. I can't talk tonight, but they also are the ones that I think are different from other styles of games. So I'm going to try to keep this thing under control, but look through that collection. Join our Discord as well. We have created a buy, sell, trade channel there too. So if you're interested in anything there, or you have stuff that you want to get rid of, go there and donate or give away or sell it or trade with somebody. Find some good homes for your games. Yeah,
definitely keep your eye out on that channel. After Jeremy did that last week, it made me think I have games piled up all over the place. And oftentimes we have to sort through these things because some of them are like prototypes we got for MVM, but some of the ones where I've just bought, some of them are still sitting in shrink wrap that I bought thinking, oh, I'm going to play this, and then didn't. So I'm probably going to take part on that channel as well here pretty soon and try to do a little bit of a culling myself.
Yep, it feels good.
All right.
And, and you can't see this in Ryan's screen though, but
oh yeah,
that portion of wall in the room that he's in right now is the only place that is not stacked floor to ceiling in board games.
because that's true. I just renovated my basement, and we are actually going to IKEA tomorrow to get new calyxes. And I kind of feel inspired by Jeremy, and I know some other people do this as well. I'll have my calyxes. I'll have 2 sets of them, and then if it doesn't fit, it doesn't stay. And every new game I get, if I want to keep it on the shelf, I'm going to have to take something off. And that's just going to be the number of games I own. And
oh, boy.
I feel like that's the way to do it. I mean, otherwise
that's how I do it.
You just get overloaded with games. So
Keeps you honest, for sure.
right. So to kind of keep the conversation moving forward, we actually did have a little bit of our own Gen Con get together over this week with some people that we've been seeing who have also been quarantining. We have our little bubble of people that we've accepted to see because we know they're doing the same standards. And we got together just to play some smaller games. But I'm kind of lucky, again, that we live in Indianapolis because Sun King still did their Gen Con beer release.
Nice.
And I've been drinking it all night, but if you see, I still have the Genevieve, it's called.
I want to get that one.
Is that still available?
It's
it is still
amber, right?
available. It is a Belgian amber.
Oh,
yeah, it's
yeah.
really good.
That is up my alley, man.
I need some
so
of that.
Of course, I had to get some of that to take there. And we played a few games. We ended up playing Batman Talisman, which is like a 4-hour-long game. So that, you know, if you played Talisman, you know. But we're all big Batman fans, so it kind of felt good for the night. You know, just a good chance to catch up with some people we hadn't seen. I mean, I wish I could say we played more games, but I really spent most of the time just eating because that's what you do at Gen Con anyway, right? So it was a good time.
To some degree.
We had the BGG live stream up on the TV the whole time and saw some of the interviews and games they were doing on BGG, so that was kind of cool. So,
did you call in a food truck?
That would have been nice to get the real feeling. Except I would have had to make everybody get in line before me, so I could have waited for 30 minutes. That would have felt really authentic.
Knock on all your neighbors' doors.
Right.
Hey, food
Come
outside.
get in line for this truck. So, it was a good day. Again, I mean, still felt the pang of missing all my industry friends and family, but you know, we still got to game at least, so that was nice.
Well, I feel a little guilty admitting this because I did something along the same lines of Ryan. We got together with Rob and Christina, Alicia and I, my wife, good friends with Rob and Christina from Blue Peg, Pink Peg. We had a trip scheduled. We've done this the last 2 years after we met them. We had one scheduled earlier this year that we canceled because it was happening right in the midst of when all of the pandemic started to hit and everyone was really just going on lockdown. And like you said, Ryan, they've both been locked down. We've been locked down. So we decided to delay it, and we finally did it last week. We call it Loft Con. It used to be called Cabin Con, but this year we got a loft in this like 10-story building in Ashland, Kentucky, of all places. And I'm sure you can see some pictures. Many shenanigans took place, but we played a ton of games. We ate a bunch of food. We drank a little bit of beer, among other things. But we spent like 4 days down there with them playing all sorts of things. We did get a little silly. I made some badges for Loft Con. I know that's really nerdy, but I'm a giant nerd, so we did that. Played Tidal Blades. One of the big ones we played, Rob and I got Mage Knight to the table.
Oh, wow.
And I've had Mage Knight. In fact, I had the original version of Mage Knight a long time ago and never really played it. You know, I got it before I was really even into the hobby. I got the deluxe version sometime in the last 2 years. And I'd promised him that I'd teach him once upon a time and never got around to it. But we did that. We still didn't even get through the whole thing. We played one day.
And the whole set of rules?
Exactly.
I didn't even get through the rule book, yeah.
I did. The teach was a bit of a teach/let's learn together scenario because we played that tutorial mission, the first reconnaissance, which is like 3 days and 3 nights of the game. We had got through 1 day and 1 night before our wives were like, hey, can we all play a game together? Because we'd been doing that for like 2 to 3 hours.
Here's a question, David. Did you have to call Jeremy Howard for rules explanations?
You know what? We didn't. We muddled through, but it was one of those experiences. But I will say this. The game deserves all the credit and kudos that it gets. It is a beast of a game, but it is so fun. And when we were done with those, the day and night, we were like, oh man, we wish we could play this again. So we're hoping to get together again sometime soon, and we're gonna have a whole day that's just gonna try to get through Mage Knight.
So I played that game years ago. Does it feel like an old game anymore?
No. Here's the craziest thing about this game, and I wish I wasn't so ignorant before, but games like Clank that take the deck building mechanic and do more with it, where it's not just a deck builder, but you're moving things around the board and doing things with your cards. Dead Reckoning, another recent game that feels very much that way to me. Mage Knight did that before anything, I think. Like, you're literally, I mean, it's not as much of a deck builder because you're very slowly adding cards as you play this game, but you have a hand of cards, and I've never played another game where it was as much of a, okay, how am I going to puzzle out this hand of cards to do all these different things that I need to do? Get my guy over to this village, interact with the village to recruit that guy, then go over to this place. And, you know, there's a lot of things going on. It feels amazingly satisfying when you perfectly coordinate everything and you have just enough. It's amazing the turns you feel like you have just enough resources and cards to get exactly what you wanted to get done sometimes. And it
sounds
really
like
fun.
my battle of Doctor Strange versus Epic Rhino the other night.
And you've been playing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, I have
yeah.
too. I was inspired by Jeremy.
I played, I don't remember what day it was. It was a day that you and Kira came over. We played something, and then from like the time you guys left, which I think was 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon, until almost 1 in the morning, I played 8 games of Marvel Champions. And I was playing on some of the really hard epic where you're playing the A and the B. So I was trying the Wrecking Crew with all their A sides and their B sides underneath of them. So I was trying to go through 8 villains at once, and it was disastrous.
That's like heroic mode. I tried them on expert, and I got through it, but it was tough.
It's impossible mode.
Doing A and B, you know, we could do an entire show about Marvel Champions, honestly.
Yeah, and before I promise I'll finish up here. You brought up Marvel Champions, and it's a great segue because I had purchased Arkham Horror, the card game, which I've never played, and I purchased it for the purpose of going down and teaching that to Rob as well, and playing that. And I was teaching Rob a lot. It was Rob's birthday. I'm seeing in the comments here. I forgot to mention that. Happy birthday, Rob. That's part of why we were celebrating it. But we never got around to playing Arkham Horror. However, I came back this week, and as these three will probably tell you, I'm completely obsessed, as you can see with my background, with Arkham Horror now. I haven't played much more of it because I wanted to save it. I'm going to try to play it with Alicia. But I played the first scenario with a friend of mine the other day. And as much as I like Marvel Champions, there's some things that Arkham does, and the immersion and the theme just drips off of this thing. And the fact that you can move from location to location, I love the experience. So stay tuned. After I play this weekend with Alicia, we'll see if I go completely all in on Arkham Horror.
Or you sell it all.
I'll have to say.
Or I sell it. I'm trying to get Jeremy to sell me his old stuff because he played some of it but then stopped. So
I've played some of it too. Mechanically, I like Marvel Champions way better. It's way more of a puzzle. It's way more of a, you have way more control over what happens to your character in Marvel Champions. And especially in team play, Marvel Champions really highlights working together. But Arkham does have a really cool thematic story. I would love if they took the way the story unfolds in Arkham and brought that into Marvel.
Well, and hopefully that's what they're doing, or something along those lines.
I'm hoping. I don't want to have to buy 9 scenario packs for every campaign, but I mean, I would if
but
it meant
you will.
Right, but I would for Marvel, because the way Arkham tells a story is very cool and very unique, and they even have branching storylines in these games, which is pretty cool.
It mashes up, and most people know this. I just never played it, but it mashes up the concept of what feels like a choose-your-own-adventure with that kind of card gameplay. I mean, the first scenario had 4 different outros depending on how you went through it. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, so I'm looking forward to playing more for sure.
Hey, Kira, what have you been playing?
Oh, I don't know, lots of stuff, I guess.
Kira's drenched in the comments. She dives in there.
I did. I'm sorry. I got a little distracted. So we had one of my best friend's birthday was, well, like I should say my husband and I, it's a couple we're friends with, we've been friends with a long time, birthday. So we social distance with them already. And so we kind of did a little mini game day. I obviously just got Tiny Epic Dinosaurs in and really wanted to get it played. My husband was very happy with my decision to get him Sonora, the new Flick and Write, which Jeremy got in at the studio and I got a chance to play and instantly fell in love with. So we played those games, right? We just had a little fun time with it. It was great to get Dinosaurs out. I had played it with them back when we had the prototype because I wanted to see how it played at 4 players, and they really liked it. So I had gotten them a copy when I backed my copy as a birthday gift, and then also taught them how to play it all over again. And we had a great time. We also played Tiny Epic Galaxies, which was fun because we hadn't played that in a while. So outside of that, the Jeremy, Ryan, and I played the Scooby-Doo game on MVM Live, which was a lot of fun. Jeremy's got it right there.
Oh yeah, that was last week. Yeah,
This is pretty cool.
Yeah, so you've got all
Totally
these
dig it.
books, and the little standees are going to go on certain places on the map, and they're going to create a 4-digit number, and that, so depending on who's there, it's going to give you a different number. You're going to look at a different book. You're going to get a different outcome. And I really went into this thinking, I think I even said, I'm like, all right, guys, I know we play a lot of these games, and it's a family one, so just let's go into it remembering it's a family game and have fun. And it was so much fun, and it was a lot more of a challenge than I think any of us were prepared for. We were super wrong. I was super wrong.
Did any one of you do any sort of impressions of any?
We did our best.
We did our best. A lot.
Of what? Of who?
All of them.
Shaggy, Scooby.
Okay, let's go down the row. Who does the best Shaggy?
Not me, that's for sure.
Come on, Ryan, give us Shaggy.
No one. None of us did a good Shaggy.
Well, only Ryan was reading. Well, I read a little Shaggy, didn't I?
You did. Jeremy did a better Shaggy than I did. I'll say that for sure.
I figured Jeremy had a good Scooby-Doo. That's the good one.
So
I wish I'd been there.
I felt like I did a pretty good job with all the voices, if it were me.
It was a fun game. We also played. I was going to let you talk here, but I'll talk about Viscounts too. What, Ryan?
Well, I was going to say, let me apologize to our audience because I'm pretty sure that I spent 60% of the Viscounts play just staring intently at the board, trying to figure out what to do because that game was so challenging, not necessarily to learn, but to play, to figure out how to get from, okay, here's what I want to do, but what are the steps that I want to take to get there? And like all Shem's games, I think playing it for the first time live, I was like, oh no, there's just so much information. And I'm seeing Kira and Jeremy had played before, so they kind of knew how to get those gears turning and get those engines building. And I was trying to watch what they were doing and replicate it, but my engine just never really got off the ground. But it was still a really good game. And for the past, 2 days since we played that yesterday, didn't we? So basically, since I stopped playing, I have been thinking about what I will do next time, which I think that's a sign of a really good game. When I lost terribly, but it was no spoilers because everyone knew I was going to lose. But now I know how I want to play it next time.
Okay, now I'm going to call you out because as soon as we got done and we were all talking about our impressions of the game, you're like, I don't know, I think I still like Paladins better. And it was that a reaction to your losing?
I think I will always like Paladins better. Paladins is way more my style of game. Paladins is much more multiplayer solitaire. Now, there are definitely some things you can do in Paladins to mess with other people. You can build buildings in spots that people wanted to go in Paladins. But this is way more direct player interaction. You're drafting cards. If you need a card, because you can you can dismiss a character to get their bonus, or you can hire that character into your deck. Well, if your turn is based on the idea that you're going to dismiss someone, get some great ability, and then combo off that, and somebody goes to that same space and hires that worker, thus removing them from the stack, it can mess with your game. And there's this castle in the center where you could take people's meeples off. So I do like the game, but I think just for the same reason that I like Paladins more than Architects, I think, David, you might understand a little better. I prefer the more multiplayer solitaire a game is, the more I'm probably going to like it. So,
I mean, that's the way it is for me.
right, so I think I will always like Paladins more, but I still really, really like Viscounts. I don't think any of Shem's games are ever going to be bad, or like I'm just not going to like them, you know?
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers the question. Paladins is also just one of those games that just struck a chord with me. And like I can play Paladins over and over and over again and not get tired of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a definite difference between the two. I think if you're more of a solitaire Euro type gamer, I think Paladins is the game you should pick. I think if you like more interactivity, especially if you want to play your games with 3 or 4 players, because I think that's where Viscount shines. I don't think it's a great 2-player game. It's fine.
I liked it too because it was quick.
Yeah, but there's so much more interactivity between the players, and it's not direct conflict. It's totally indirect conflict, but you can definitely screw with other players in very fun ways. And I think that's where that game really shines. And if you really want to, experience everything that Viscounts has, there are 2 main mechanics in there that really, really need 3 or 4 players to make them shine. Yeah. So I like it. I like the game a lot. I like it as equally as I do Paladins. I need to play it more, but the one thing I will say about it is I play the game in 2 very different ways and scored a lot of points. And I love that about games. If a game gives you multiple paths to victory and all of them are viable, that means something to me. So.
Yeah. Well, I felt pretty good that normally when I first play a game with you, when you've learned the rules, you tend to like take a pretty massive lead as I'm figuring all the gears out for the first time in the same way Ryan did. Though Ryan seems to keep up with you a little bit better, mainly just because you guys play these kind of games more than I have in the past. But I was feeling really good about both games. I was a very short amount of points away from winning, and that makes me feel good. Like I don't need to win the game. I need to feel like I had a good game, and I felt like I had really good games when I played. And it's something that kind of like I rode that. Like Ryan's thinking about it, I'm just like, ooh, I can't wait to play it again because now that I know I like that strategy, now I want to try another strategy and just kind of explore the game a little bit more and see what else I can do. So I don't know. I really, really liked it. And I loved Paladins, but this one struck a lot more chords for me, I think.
I need to win.
Hey, that's true. Hey.
No. All right, are you sure?
No.
He likes winning. He likes winning.
So everyone, that is episode 70 of Chit Chat. Invite you guys to, of course, join our Discord server. Kirsten, you would put the notes in the comments below.
It's in our description of the video.
Yeah, join there. You can buy, sell, trade games. Talk to us about all of our future live streams, games in general that we're excited for. We are planning an SN live stream. So if you have any games that you are suggesting or that you may know about, go to that MVM Live tab inside of there and let us know what games you might be interested in us covering. Any comments can also be made there, and we look forward to you joining us there. Of course, make comments today so you'll be entered to win. And I think, is that everything, guys?
I think it is.
Next week?
All right. Next week, yes, we will announce. We were supposed to have him this week, but his name is Luke Jones. Goes by Joker Jonesy online. He has his own YouTube channel, but he covers just villainous games from Ravensburger. And this guy has played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. I kid you not, the guy is an expert. I love people like this, that like board games to the extent that they will play them to death and they know everything about it. This is the guy that you don't want to sit down and play a competitive game with because he'll know everything about every single card. It's fascinating for me. We're going to invite him over to the show to talk to him about Marvel Villainous and why it's so different than Disney Villainous. I love both of those series, so I look forward to talking to him. So that's all, guys. Thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you guys next time.